it's Katie, and today I'm going to be discussing Season 6 of Game of Thrones, as well as predictions and theories for the rest of the series. So if you are not caught up on Game of Thrones, don't watch this. First of all, Season 6 was such an incredible season. I absolutely loved it. And the best part about watching it is that I loved being able to go online, do a recap review, and then get to hear your guys' thoughts on the episode. So that's why today I wanted to take some of the questions that you guys were asking and wanting to know my theories on and kind of share them with you. So the first question is from Michael Wilson. He says, my biggest question is just what's happening with the Night's Watch? Now that Jon and the wildlings are gone, there's said to be less than 50 of them, so is there just no first line of defense at the wall against the White Walkers? That's actually a really good question. I'm not positive on the exact number of men are left at the wall, but yeah, that's something that's always been so funny to me when reading and watching Game of Thrones. No one ever took the Night's Watch that seriously. That's where you sent your criminals. The Night's Watch was like an alternative form of punishment when they weren't gonna kill somebody. And the Night's Watch have always talked about the White Walkers, but the rest of Westeros seems to see it as a myth. They don't fully believe it because they haven't been the ones on the front lines seeing it firsthand. So the entire time I've always been like, why is no one helping these poor guys of the Night's Watch with these White Walkers and the Night's King? There's gonna be a huge battle. They're just gonna be able to march right on into Westeros because no one's gonna be there to stop them. Stannis had the right idea when he sent his army to help, but it's still not enough men. But until the rest of the world can see the White Walkers as a threat, no one's really gonna come help the Night's Watch, which is very interesting. And that leads me to believe that Dany might have something to do with helping the Night's Watch. She has 3 dragons. We know dragon fire is a very magical fire. She might be able to wipe out the Night's King and his whole army. Who knows? But I definitely think she'll play a part in that because no one else seems to have listened to the North. And eventually they're gonna have to because they're gonna be a huge threat. So, as far as what's going on with the Night's Watch and how many men are left, I'm not exactly sure, but I can tell you this, there are definitely not enough men on the wall to be able to handle a battle against the White Walkers. It's just not possible. They need help. We'll see. We'll see if they're gonna get it. That's gonna be one terrifying episode, I can tell you that. All right, the next question is from Nahuel Reynoso. I hope I said your name right. Who is the third head of the dragon? We have Dany, Jon, and Tyrion, question mark? It is a perfect equation to rule. Mother of dragons, king in the north, and the hand. That is definitely very true, and I think a lot of people believe that it's going to be Dany, Jon, and Tyrion. Obviously, we found out this season that Jon Snow is indeed a Targaryen. Well, technically, she didn't say who the father of the baby was. It still could have been Robert, maybe, but it's like pretty 1000% confirmed that Jon Snow is indeed a Targaryen. So a lot of people think that he's gonna end up on one of Daenerys' dragons, but here's a theory that I have, which is a little bit different. I do think Jon's gonna ride a dragon, I just don't think it's gonna be one of Dany's dragons. In the books, Jon keeps having vivid dreams of the crypt in Winterfell. And since he keeps dreaming about this, a lot of us can maybe guess that he'll probably try to go back to the crypt, which is underneath Winterfell, and find out the true facts about who his parents really are. Also, there is mention of an ice dragon, which would be so cool because Lyanna Stark is ice, that's what they represent, and Targaryen, that's always dragon. So it would be so cool if Jon somehow had his own dragon, which ended up being like an ice dragon to ride on. But that's just kind of like a crazy theory. So Jon could ride one of Daenerys' dragons, or maybe he awakes another dragon, bringing more dragons into the world, which would be really cool. Since he is a Targaryen, maybe that is something that could be possible. Now, as far as the theory about Tyrion, which is a very solid theory, well, 1, Dany trusts him. 2, he's already met the dragons and they didn't eat him. And 3, I personally think he's a Targaryen because his father always said to him, "You're not a Lannister, you're not my son, you'll never be my son." And forever everyone thinks, including Tyrion, thinks that his father never saw him as a true Lannister because he was a dwarf and he was different and could not be the son his father always wanted. But I personally think that Tyrion is not a Lannister. And I think Tywin Lannister definitely knew about it, but couldn't have that sort of slander on his house he could never admit that one of his sons was not truly a Lannister, and that would probably reflect poorly on the Lannister house. So I think that Tywin knew and kept it a secret, and that's why he constantly said, "You're not a son of mine, you are not a Lannister," and never gave him land or ever treated him fairly. So I'm kind of thinking maybe Tyrion's mom was either seduced or captured or whatever by King Aerys, the Mad King, whoever it is or whatever happened. I have a feeling that Tyrion is a Targaryen. In which case, that's why the dragons didn't eat him and he was able to calm them down. And we haven't seen anyone else interact with the dragons unless Dany was there, so it's kind of odd that they didn't just eat him, and it's not just because he's a witty, awesome lead character. I think there's a hidden meaning behind that. So personally, I do think it's gonna be Dany, Jon, Tyrion. There are also some theories that Bran might warg into a dragon, or even that Varys is a Targaryen, but I don't really think so. So I guess we're just gonna have to see, but yeah, definitely I'm gonna go with Jon, Tyrion, and Dany. Jordan Goodridge asked, what has been your favorite moment from season 6? Oh, there's so many amazing moments in season 6. I mean, Battle of the Bastards, I don't think I'll ever be able to forget about that episode or that scene ever. It felt like a movie. It was just the most incredible episode. And then of course season 6 finale. Oh my gosh, Winds of Winter was an incredible episode. I don't know. I don't even think I could have a favorite moment. I just thoroughly enjoyed this season. There's just been too many good moments. I'm sorry, I can't pick. Next question from Simon Cirillo. How is Varys teleporting all over the place? All right, I love that question. Haven't you heard, you guys? Varys is a merman. So I found this article, I believe a Redditor stated all these facts proving that it is possible for Varys to be a merman. I don't think it's a real thing. I think it's more of a joke, but it just fits so perfectly. It's hilarious. Because you're right, he went to Dorne and then all of a sudden he's back on the ship with Dany sailing to Westeros. I guess you would just have to assume that time has passed, but Varys has always been one to travel very, very quickly. And then of course they say that he wears the long robe so you don't see his fishtail, and he swam. That's how he got there so fast. I like that theory, so I'm gonna go with that one. Ruben Orson asked, now that Walder Frey and his sons are dead, who gets control of their land and army? Will they suspect Jaime of killing him? Because they can't do much about that since the Lannister army is massive and they have a small army. Since Walder Frey and his sons are dead, I really don't think that there's anyone left to even care. Honestly, I don't think anyone's gonna care that Walder Frey is dead. He was a really annoying man that everyone always complained about, but they used to have to be in good terms with him to be able to cross to the other side, because his land and his castle, I guess, were kind of like a gateway between two areas. So now that he's dead, I really don't think people are gonna care. The Lannisters have a huge army. They'll probably take it over and claim it as theirs, because that was kind of a powerful position in the land of Westeros where Walder Frey's land was. So I'm just gonna assume that the Lannisters are gonna take it. Yeah, I really don't think people are gonna care that much that Walder Frey died. Since all his sons are dead, really no one can claim the land. I mean, maybe one of his million daughters could try to claim the land, but I don't think so. I think goodbye, Walder Frey, and we'll never see or hear about you again. So as far as thoughts and theories about next season, there's a bunch of things that need to get done. Dany obviously needs to make it over to Westeros. Jon Snow will probably help out the Night's Watch and defeating the Night King and his army, but Jon could also try to meet up with Daenerys. I do think that he's gonna go into the crypt and somehow figure out that he isn't just Ned Stark's bastard. I think he's gonna find out eventually. And now that Bran knows, it is very possible that Bran could go and tell Jon. Jon may not believe him and then go into the crypt and kind of you know, figure it out for himself. But also something that was really interesting is Bran is starting to mess things up, because if you look in the scene with Ned and Lyanna, the servant girl that's in there totally sees Bran. And for some reason the show decided to literally have an insert of that moment with her seeing Bran. So I'm kind of curious, maybe she's alive somewhere, maybe she is doing something. I don't know if she's gonna come back into play, but it is very obvious that Bran has some sort of way of messing up the past or influencing it. So that's gonna be really interesting to see his storyline. But I do think Jon should figure out who his parents are next season. so that he can finally figure out who he is, and it still gives him enough time to really be his true self before the show ends. I honestly think it would be cool if Dany and Jon got together first to take on King's Landing, and it's like, oh, all is well, and then all of a sudden we have all these White Walkers moving through Westeros, destroying everything. I kind of see it as being a two-part, but it also could happen at the same time. A lot of people think it's going to be Dany in King's Landing against Cersei, and then it's going to be Jon against the White Walkers, which is very possible, but then why would they ever need to meet? You know, why would they ever even need to work together on anything? So I kind of think they're going to take the battles one at a time to be able to team up Jon with Daenerys, which would be so cool, and their dynamic will be so weird, and it's like, you two aren't supposed to meet, you're not supposed to be anywhere near each other, so when that happens, that's going to be really, really trippy to see. I also think Jorah is going to have a big part, or he's got something left to do in this series, because Dany sent him away, and he's got to find the cure for the grayscale. Obviously, Stannis found a way to keep the grayscale from spreading on Shireen. There has to be a cure somewhere, or at least something that stops it from spreading. So I think Jorah's gonna find it. I definitely think that he'll be able to figure it out, especially with Lyanna Mormont now working with Jon Snow, who knows Davos. Maybe Davos will have some sort of insight that Jorah would be able to tell him. That would be a cool scene. I would love to see Davos and Jorah have a scene together and maybe fix it. He'll fix it. I think so. I don't think he's done yet. I definitely think he's gonna die eventually. Whether that be season 7 or 8, I don't know, but I do think Jorah is gonna sacrifice himself to save Dany again, just because that's what he needs to do. He's getting really old, he can't fight as well as he used to, he's in love with Daenerys, there's no way he'll ever be able to be with her, so the only thing that he can do is serve her and then die for her. And I do think that that's gonna happen eventually, which is just so sad, but I do think it's gonna happen. Well, I've rambled on like so long about Game of Thrones, I could literally talk about it all day. But if there's another thing in Game of Thrones that you'd like to hear me talk about or you wanna discuss with me, leave it in the comments below, and maybe I'll make another theory video and get to discuss theories and stuff with you guys, because I just love Game of Thrones, and there's so many possibilities now that the books aren't written, so it's really kind of cool to come up with predictions and theories and everything. So let me know your theories, predictions, and everything in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.